If you're anything like me, at some stage in your PTSD journey, at least once or twice, you have been confronted with the fact that PTSD is not that bad, supposedly. You've been made to feel that your symptoms, your mental illness is not real, and that you're basically bunging it on. Bunging it on for overseas people is you're making it up. You're putting it on. Do I really have PTSD? Well, I know the answer to that because I've lived with it. But we're going to talk about that today, that concept of, is PTSD really that bad?
Welcome to Shattered the Podcast. STP is the story of my journey from the depths of mental illness to a place where I could live again.
It's important to note at the outset that some cases of PTSD are easily treatable. Maybe some drugs, short-term therapy, maybe just time allows you to get past the trauma and begin living again. But PTSD never really sounded like the right diagnosis for me. It's like, I've just got PTSD. I now know that I've got complex PTSD. And that C is very, very helpful, the C for complex, in allowing people to understand that my PTSD isn't this thing that small thing happened and I'm having trouble getting over it. The chemistry in my brain changed and I became a different person. The PTSD symptoms were horrific. They were terrible. They were hard to live with. And it made it difficult for me to see that I had any worth or value. That's the first step in our journey today. Second step. What was it like for me at my worst? There was a day that I kind of remember. It was the morning I went and lay on the floor with my face down. I don't know what my arms were doing. I think they were just beside me. And my wife came in and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm just lying here till you go to work." And she said, "I've already been to work and I've just come home." I'd been lying on that floor like that for something like 10 hours and I had no concept that that's what I'd done, nor did I have the ability to move or change my situation. There were times when my wife would say that I didn't speak for 2 weeks, quite literally did not have any kind of conversation outside of yes, no, with anybody in my household, my children, my wife, anybody. This tied into my self-esteem. I hated myself. I hated the symptoms. I hated being weak. I hated feeling that I was letting everybody down, letting my wife down, letting myself down. Was my PTSD, is my PTSD really that bad? Yes. To the point where I felt like the only way that I could fix it or change it was to take my own life. Is PTSD really that bad? Yes. Yes, it can be. Why do you think so many veterans are choosing to take their own lives. I watch the struggles that my brother goes through. And the thing is, both he and I remember what it's like to be healthy. So there's this self-loathing, this idea of that we're weak because we can't just get over it. PTSD in its real form sucks. It is horrible. It is terrible. So, the journey. Where am I now? Okay, the fact of the matter is that now I don't live with that shame, that constant shame of I'm weak, I'm pathetic. I've come to terms with the fact that I am damaged, I'm injured, I'm hurt. Somebody the other day asked me in a session what I do when somebody either belittles my mental illness, my journey, or they say that it's not real because they have something else, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, something like that. And the real answer is that I choose not to engage with that. I choose not to allow that thinking to become part of my journey. And the young lady couldn't believe when I said it's a choice. It's quite literally a choice. She said, no, offence is not a choice. And I said, well, actually, offence is a choice. You know, you could say, this person made me feel like crap, or you could say, this person tried to make me feel like crap, but I wasn't going to let them. So when somebody says, oh, you've got PTSD, did you used to be a soldier? Used to be upsetting. Used to be really upsetting. You know, I got into an argument with a guy once, and at one point he threw out that he was a veteran. I served my country and I don't have to put up with this crap. And it was like no other experience was valid to this guy. And that seems like the message that's out there at the moment, that unless your PTSD has come from something noble, it can't be real. So now what do? I choose not to compare myself. I choose not to be offended. And I choose to turn those times, those horrible incidents, into teaching moments. Mate, you do understand that not everybody that has PTSD was a veteran. You do know that trauma happens in many different kinds of situations. Now, I'm saying this and you're thinking, oh, it sounds easy for you. I mean, it really does when I'm saying it like this, but when you're in the moment. See, I never used to talk about the fact that I had PTSD. Nobody outside my immediate family knew. Not my work, not my church, not my friends. Even some of my family had no idea. I didn't talk about it. When I was around people, I would pretend to be as normal as I could. And I allowed people to just think that I was rude, because I would just do the Irish goodbye. Just leave without telling anyone. It's time to go. I'm out. And people would. They'd say to my wife, oh, what happened to Mark? Is he all right? Is everything okay? And she's like, yeah. He's just done. He had to go. It was easier to let people think I'd just become a jerk than to try to explain to them that I was living with this horrible illness. And I was completely ashamed. And I didn't talk about it. And then I told my psychologist that I was going to volunteer at a radio station as an announcer. And she just kind of went, okay. She thought about it for a minute and went, that's a great idea. I was expecting her to say no. I was kind of hoping she would. Because it meant that if I exposed myself, there was the opportunity for more people to find out how damaged I actually was, and that terrified me. But I went on to radio and volunteered at a community station and ended up getting a job out of it. And the thing of it was that I hid my PTSD from everybody. Listeners didn't know, my co-workers didn't know, and for all intents and purposes, they saw this happy-go-lucky kind of guy that nothing seems to faze him. My emotions were so under control that I had such a tight grip on my emotion that if I was freaking out, I would walk to the bathroom nonchalantly, forcing myself to be nonchalant. And I would walk in and I'd just have a meltdown, quietly, privately, by myself, because I was terrified that people were going to find out. And the thing of it was, is when it did come out on radio, came out accidentally, but it opened something in me. It opened in me a desire to share the experience, to let people know that PTSD isn't a just illness. For some of us, it has destroyed our lives. Why do you think the suicide rate is so high? PTSD is horrible. It's life-altering. But you know what? Here I am today. I'm able to talk about it. I spoke about it in university. I spoke about it in school. I spoke to in a classroom full of adults. And I'm able to stand in front of them and feel no shame in saying that, hey, I do struggle with this thing. And it is real. I remember once I was presenting and the person I was with has bipolar disorder. And I heard their story. And it was incredible, shocking, but incredible. And there was a little break, and I turned to them and said, I really don't know how I can follow that. My experience is nothing compared to yours. And this person said, well, you know, that's not true. Every experience is valid. So I took that at face value, and then I told my story. Person came up to me afterwards and said, I don't feel like I deserve to speak about mental illness when I think about what you've been through. Here's a girl with bipolar disorder who cannot believe some of the struggles that I've faced. In all this, though, the most important thing for me is not to compare. It's not to assume that somebody else's mental illness is worse or better or different. Well, different, yes, but in any way more important or of more value than my own. You can't compare. As soon as you compare, you're telling yourself that you aren't as ill, injured, struggling, living with something that is really bad. Because even in your own mind, you're saying, oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Understand that there is no just, I've just got PTSD. Your suffering is real. Your pain is real. For those around you that are listening to this, you don't have PTSD. You don't have a mental illness. My encouragement is just to be kind in all things. Just be kind. I have a friend who is non-binary. They go by they, them, and he, she. Now, I was brought up teaching that they, them is rude. You can't call somebody a them or a they. It was demeaning. Why do you think you can't say those people? It's the same thing. It's them. And I screw it up all the time. I mispronounced the gender. I misplaced the genders. I used the wrong form. And I chatted to them one day and I said, mate, you know that I care for you. I respect you. Please understand that I'm doing my best. And she said something interesting. She said, look, as long as I can see that you're trying and you are really trying, I'm letting the little things go. The little things don't matter. That kind of acceptance, that kind of love for a person living with PTSD, thought that, you might get things wrong, but I know that you're trying. That's good enough. I want to thank you for listening to Shattered the podcast. I know the audio is a little bit different today. I apologize for that. I will have it fixed for next week. Have a great week. Bye for now.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Shattered the Podcast. I'm Mark. Special thanks to my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also to Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And we can't forget the amazing band Adelaide, who let us use their song as our theme. For more information, check us out on all your socials, STP Shattered the Podcast.